Thank you for viewing this week's Oregon Minute. This week we are interviewing Jim Pliner, principal of Oregon High School. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Emily.
How are you doing today?
Doing okay. We are very busy, but we're really excited about some of the changes that are coming in spite of the challenges that lie ahead.
Mm-hmm. So, how has your summer been?
It has been incredibly busy. We are roughly 4 weeks away from our graduation, our virtual graduation of the class of 2020, and we spent a good balance of the summer preparing for that, as well as 3 potential starts to the school year. Once it was decided that we were going to need to start in a virtual manner, we really have worked extremely hard to make some substantial structural changes to the way that our school day will look and the school week will look, and that required an amazing amount of work. So it's been busy. We've spent a lot of time in teams coordinating that work, and it has just been it's been a blur. The summer's been a blur.
Yeah, I bet. So can you give me an overview of what reopening will look like at OHS? Mostly virtual, I assume, but can you give a little bit more
specifics? So the launch of our school year will be all virtual at the high school, and so we've made some pretty substantial changes to our schedule in order to utilize the lessons we learned in the spring in a way that gives a better and more robust learning experience for our kids. Number one, we had an 8-period day, and we realized that 7 or 8 periods a day is just too many for students and for teachers to manage. Secondly, we figured out that we weren't able to meet in a synchronous fashion with students last spring, and we felt that that was something that just absolutely had to improve. So this fall, what we did is we have moved to a virtual block schedule, and what that means is a year-long class that is run at 36 weeks at 45 minutes a class is compressed into an 18-week schedule with roughly an 85-minute class. So what we're doing is we're condensing and we're pacing instruction differently so that we can earn a full credit in a semester's time. But what we've done is we've reduced the number of classes that our students are engaging with at any one time so that they can avoid a bunch of different transitions, communications through with 5, 6, 7, 8 teachers in their day. And so it streamlines things. It allows our staff also to build better relationships with our students, given the fact that we're in a virtual setting.
What response have you gotten from staff and students about those preparations?
It was because it was made to improve the experiences for students and staff. It made perfect sense. And so the vetting of this happened over the course of a couple quick weeks, and our staff felt very comfortable. We worked with a group of students to kind of vet the changes, and we had surveyed our families as well, and we knew of what the strengths and struggles of the spring experience was. And so we felt that for so many reasons it was a win-win. The execution of it was just the difficulty. We had our student schedules for the year in an 8-period day done in May. That we always have them done before the end of the school year. Once the virtual announcement came out, it was after August 1st, and we had to completely rewire the matrix. We met with departments, we restructured, we dumped all of our student schedules out and had to start from scratch. Had to work with Infinite Campus because there's changes that have to be made on their end in order for us to make the substantial moves that we did. So, my hat is off to my team. Just the associate principals who were involved in that movement, the student services faculty. We have had our teachers and our department chairs just really deeply involved with helping construct this in a really short turnaround time. So that, but the feedback has been amazingly positive. What I feel incredibly fortunate to be working in the Oregon School District. I mean that. That's not just positive, spin, because There are districts that had decided roughly about the same time that we knew that virtual was going to be in our fall. That gave me time to do the things that we needed to do. There are districts that at that same time, hopefully and optimistically decided we're going to be in person this fall. And since then have had to, in the last week or so, have had to default to a virtual setting and have had no time to plan or to react. And so that's a situation we could have been in. And we've also seen communities that where there's just been a lot of angst and strife, because we do know the experiences that our kids value in high school go well beyond what happens during the academic day as well. We absolutely know that this is not where we want to be. I am incredibly proud of our staff for being as adaptive as they have been in the short time that's been there. And we all know every single teacher wants to be in person with kids, wants to be giving our kids the full range of outcomes. And we're hoping that if we as a community can pull together and mask and socially distance and do all the things that are necessary for us to turn the corner on this virus, that we can get back to school and give our kids those opportunities yet this school year.
So I think the answer to this question is obvious, but it's nuanced at the same time. So what factors went into that decision to go all virtual this year?
There is the factors when there were certain elements that were in our control for a period of time, and then Public Health Dane County made an order just recently that said that all of our schools are going to be virtual in Dane County. So that would have been taken out of our hands at a certain time at any point. We did not know that to be the case, and we certainly prepared ourselves for a full in-person return. We had planning teams that worked on a hybrid model, which would be half the week one part of the alphabet, half the week the other part of the alphabet. And some kids would have opted not to come in that model at all. And it became abundantly clear to us as we looked at the early guidelines and recommendations and requirements that came out of Public Health Madison-Dane County that it was going to be necessary for us to start in that virtual format. It was the safest format for students and for staff, and it was the most practical given kind of the resource allocation that we were looking at.
Mm-hmm. So, along with staying home and being virtual, what are just some maybe general precautions that teachers, students, parents can take to help?
Yeah, I mean, it's wearing masks, and we've seen that has had a positive effect on data in Dane County since the masking order has gone into effect. So utilizing a mask, definitely working on distancing. It's a very difficult. It's fairly insidious, isn't it? That many young people are asymptomatic and are highly transmissible. And so in a very short period of time, gatherings with young people can result in great amounts of transmission. And then as that gets into a school setting, we've seen from schools that have begun their school years in person in other parts of the country have quickly run into difficulties. And when we look at the number, when we look at the impact, if you have positive exposure, how quickly that can quarantine entire classrooms and entire settings of kids and staff, keeping our doors open will be a challenge if we start too early and too fast. So washing your hands, wearing masks, adhering to social distancing, really doing your best to socialize in ways that are positive and healthy for you but keep you safe. That I know it's difficult, and I'm looking at the camera. I love our kids, I really do, and we really, really feel for you. And this is just a very, very difficult time because we're in control, typically, of so many of the factors and criteria that help us open our doors and conduct business. And in this situation, unfortunately, there's so many things that are outside of our control that are impacting the way in which we do business. I mean, I'm a handshaker, you know, and I'm a hugger, you know, with the people that I meet on a daily basis. And I wonder when that is going to happen next, because so much is so different. We dance around each other, and even in a classroom setting, teaching through a mask and learning through a mask with desks set at 6 feet apart are going to fundamentally change some of the things that we're used to in our building. However, the culture of Oregon High School is something that is extremely positive, and it's not really about bricks and glass windows and doors and desks. It's about the human beings that interact with one another. And while the rules of the game have changed a bit, and a lot, it's just really going to be about this fall continuing to balance that, you know, the learning experiences, the content, and the skills and dispositions that our kids need to develop. In addition to that, the relationships and the social emotional elements that are part of growing up and staying happy, healthy, and safe.
As a principal of a high school, did you ever think within our lifetime that this is something we would experience?
Oh goodness, no. Are you kidding me? No, absolutely not. We have always been in crisis preparation on one thing or another over the course of time. You know, I think of the class of 2020 that we just graduated. They were born right in the shadow of 9/11, and so they were 9/11 babies. And as they grew up, there were elements that their generation, you know, became a part of what we feared for, right? School shootings and school violence and things in the community were all things that we prepared for and we drilled for and we had protocols for, and you know, whoever saw a pandemic being a part of the end of their high school experiences. And then as we look into the class of 2021 and beginning remotely, you know, it is something that absolutely, if that was a part of my administrative training, I missed that day. But we are, you know, it calls upon a lot of skills and a lot of, more than anything, just teamwork. And I couldn't be more fortunate to have such a professional and committed group of educators to work with. And I think that we have worked together to establish a collaborative culture amongst our staff in the ways that we work. And thank God for that, because it is paying off. No one person, you know, myself included, has the answers to every question that we have, but together we can figure it out, and that's kind of what we're doing.
Well, Jim, is there anything else you would like to add?
You know, I guess that as we launch the school year, you know, some of the things that we can't do, we know, you know, the lights don't go on at Panther Stadium, and we can't have football and soccer and tennis and cross country at this point in time. The WIA has pushed those windows for those seasons out into the spring, and we're super hopeful that that time will come and that we'll have those activities. We are, however, committed to doing any of our clubs. We have, I think on last count we had 56 clubs or activities that we run when the doors are open and the lights are on at Oregon High School. And our hope is that we can run as many of those as possible in a virtual adapted format, so that kids can have social outlets, contact with positive adults, and doing things that they like to do. You know, that's something that we're going to do. Otherwise, you know, just I thank our community, you know, so much when we do get into a phased restart, when the metrics allow that, and there are some specific metrics that have come out of Public Health Madison-Dane County. When we can get to that spot, more than likely our situation will be a hybrid return because of social distancing and probably capacity restrictions. We also know that a return to school certainly could elicit another round of infections. And so we strategically are committed to teaching using the Google Classroom for the entire year, because number one, we know that some families have elected not to return, at least through the semester, and until that they feel that it is really safe to. And additionally, so we're going to have to continue to teach them, and we know that if the lights go out at Oregon High School, we can continue to seamlessly teach in that Google Classroom. So I'm excited for the new challenges. I wish that wasn't a part of our work, but it is.
So when it comes to all virtual learning, there are, as there would be consequences for, that you mentioned for having in-person learning, there are consequences that come with all virtual learning, and that is, you know, if a student lives in a rural area. Data shows that Wisconsin lags behind in its broadband coverage. So how has the school adapted its all virtual learning
Yeah, I mean,
programs to that?
equity-related concerns across our district can come in a number of forms, right? And so our district in the spring of the year distributed MiFi through, I think there were Verizon MiFis, throughout 200 households to try to increase Wi-Fi access for families that were struggling with broadband access. We do know that even that in some of our areas wasn't ideal, but I think we were able to get some really good data. We have a very talented tech department, and central office administrators have been just tremendous in terms of not only resourcing our district with Wi-Fi and devices, but also meeting basic needs. You know, we've got food distribution that goes on, pre-K-12 for families that are struggling with having those needs met. And so at one point in time, my hope is that even if we can't get to a point where we can totally open our doors, but public health allows us enough leeway that we can bring small groups of kids like we're able to do with K-2 kids at this point in time, we could make our commons available, which would be reliable internet and a structured place and a supervised place for students to study if necessary. That isn't possible at the current time, but you know, I guarantee you as soon as we launch all of this, we're going to get into identifying where our needs and problems exist, and our central office has been amazing. From Dr. Bergstrom through all of the directors of instruction and our tech department and the building principals are all just absolutely united to do what we need to serve these families.
Thank you so much for appearing today, Jim, and I just wanted to commend you and all of OSD staff for your response to the pandemic. So thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you for viewing this week's Oregon Minute. Tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m.